Well, that's what one would expect from this president. You know, under the Constitution, the president has the authority to appoint a person that he thinks will advance into the policy of the law, the area of the law where it's fuzzy or where Congress doesn't exactly conform with the Constitution, what he wants. George Bush did it with Sam Alito and John Roberts, and Barack Obama's doing it with Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Kagan. I think she's a quintessential extension of the president's philosophy. She believes in a big government philosophy. You know, what troubles me is something that might not trouble you.
Yeah.
Most of these types that the president will appoint, and you just characterized her, I think, fairly accurately, because you characterized her from the record, also believe in civil liberties, as do I. I don't think she does. I mean, she testified under oath that the president has the authority to lock people up and throw away the key on the basis of what he thinks of them. Now, that might please you and some people on the right, but this drives me crazy.
Oh, it doesn't please me. Not with this man. Not with a Marxist, in my view, in the White House.
Well, then you shouldn't want. I don't want to fight with you.
Yeah.
But nobody should want any president to have that kind of power.
Of course not. No, but based on, I mean, I don't. When did she say that? What are you referring to?
She testified in her capacity as the Solicitor General, so sometime in the past 14 or 15 months, that somewhere, from some source, without saying what, the president has the power to lock people up and throw away the key. That, of course, has been rejected by the Supreme Court, was attempted by George W. Bush. Barack Obama may be doing it, but because he doesn't tell us what he does, we don't know if he's doing it. But she, under oath, defended this. Now, I don't know if this was her true feeling or if she was just being the messenger of this administration. And interestingly, Steve, she also said in a now famous and soon-to-be well-read law review article in the University of Chicago Law Review that nominees to the Supreme Court should be compelled to reveal how they think on the hot-button issues of the day. I'm chuckling because I guess she wrote that when she never imagined that she would be a nominee to the Supreme Court and would have to reply to it.
We're talking to our friend Judge Andrew Napolitano, the senior Fox News analyst on the Fox News Channel, host of Brian and the Judge on the radio at Fox, and the author of the bestseller Lies the Government Told You, Myth, Deception. Well, I got it wrong.
Myth,
Power, and Deception in American History.
It's got a nice ring to it, even though it's terrifying.
It's a great book. I mean, we don't agree on everything, but let me ask you about her here in a law review article, and this was pointed out by Ed Meese today over at Heritage. She expressed agreement with the idea that the court primarily exists to look out for, quote, the despised and disadvantaged. I mean, that's Obama. Obama wants people who are going to know what it's...
Only if they're despised and disadvantaged by the government is the court supposed to look out for them. I mean, the court is supposed to look at the Constitution and look at what the government does and grant the government the benefit of the doubt, but make certain that the government doesn't stray from the Constitution.
Well,
I mean, if the despised are the beneficiaries of health care, that doesn't justify the government forcing the rest of us to buy health care where we might not choose to do so. Look, she is a big government person who will probably give this president almost exactly what he wants.
Well, I know, and that's the scary part, because here's a president who from the beginning said that he wants people who could look at international law, people who could empathize, Supreme Court justices who could empathize with what it's like to be poor, gay, disabled. What the heck does that have to do with the Constitution of the United States?
She should empathize for the Constitution because that's the oath that she will have to. Well, she took the same oath when she became Solicitor General, but that's the oath that she presumably would take if she joins the court. Look, justices of the Supreme Court are not supposed to be advocates for groups, Steve. They are not supposed to be advocates for causes other than the cause of the Constitution and to keep the government within the confines of the Constitution. If doing so benefits a certain group, then so be it. But you can't go to the court as the champion of a group because then you don't have an open-minded, fair attitude towards whoever comes before you. You're there as if you were the representative of a group rather than as a fair-minded judge.
Do you think her sexuality matters? someone got in trouble for bringing up, I forget who it was, if it was a member of the government now, I don't even remember, about a week or two ago, that she was gay. And
I don't think it matters one way.
Well, but based on her fact that, based on her stance against the military, which was a wrong stance. I mean, she didn't even understand that this wasn't a military policy. This was signed by the President of the United States, passed by Congress, and she took it out on the military, not because she doesn't like the military supposedly, but she didn't like, quote unquote, their policy of don't ask, don't tell. I mean, if in fact she is gay and that drove her, I mean, shouldn't we call into question whether or not that would drive her decisions?
Absolutely not. I don't think her sexuality means anything to anybody, whether she's gay, straight, or bi, and it's an area in this age that's off limits. In terms of whose policy it was, she did the same as almost every law school dean in the country until the Supreme Court clarified the policy. Remember, at the time she did what she did, it had been declared unconstitutional by a federal trial court in Newark, New Jersey, and by the federal appeals court in Philadelphia. It wasn't until the Supreme Court reversed that the policy became lawful. It was during that period when the courts had declared it unconstitutional. We're talking about the Solomon Amendment now. We're not talking about don't ask, don't tell.
Right.
The Solomon Amendment basically said if you take federal dollars, you have to allow federal agents, people wanting to hire your students, onto your campus. The Solomon Amendment was unconstitutional for the first 4 years of its existence until the Supreme Court clarified it.
Are you afraid? I mean, I talk to people like Nat Hentoff, a lifelong Democrat liberal. He'll call himself a libertarian now, but he says he has never been so frightened in all of his life as he is of this president. I mean, if this so far he's replaced, basically liberals with liberals, but if he gets a chance, God forbid, to replace a conservative with another Kagan or Sotomayor, that's
a game changer.
You could take the Constitution and you could pick up your dog duty with it because it'll be worthless.
Unfortunately, I have to agree with you. I mean, this is not a game changer. This is replacing a 90-year-old liberal Republican with a 50-year-old liberal Democrat. The voting record of the two would be almost the same, although actually John Paul Stevens would show a little bit more deference to the rights of individuals than she would. She would be more interested in showing deference to the rights of individuals depending upon what group they belonged to. But you're right. If Anthony Kennedy leaves the court, voluntarily or involuntarily, that's a game changer because he's the swing vote. If any of the four conservatives, Roberts, Scalia, Thomas, Alito, leaves the court, that's a game changer. But for now...
And you agree with me you said you agree with me when I said that you could use the Constitution at that point to wipe your dog with.
I don't always agree with the way the conservatives have interpreted the Constitution. Since I, like Nat Hentoff, am a libertarian, and I believe that the Constitution means what it says. For example, I would have been with, and you and I debated this many, many times on this very show, I would have been with the liberals and Justice John Paul Stevens on the Boumediene case, which is whether or not the Congress can take habeas corpus rights away from you. I don't know where Justice Kagan would be on this. I know where the conservatives were. I know where Justice Kennedy was. So my own views sometimes go across the line because I support the literal meaning of the Constitution. I believe what it says, and I think it's a principled belief because it's not driven by a party's agenda. She may be driven by an agenda. Well, I don't know what the agenda is, but it's probably whatever drives Barack Obama.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say that's safe to say. All right, listen, Judge, always a pleasure to speak to you, sir. And the book, Lies That the Government Told You, Myth, Power, and Deception in American History. Continued success, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you, Steve. Pleasure to be on with you.
All right, Judge Andrew Napolitano, ladies and gentlemen.